Hello and welcome to It's All Kicking Off, another football roundtable discussion podcast with myself, Adam Wilborn, Ewan Patterson, and Andy Murray. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Football on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily football podcasts. But gents, we are here today to discuss the possibility of the Reds finally winning the league.
It's been a long, long time coming, and decades and decades have passed without a proper league title, and last night's performance was very encouraging. Sneaky little 2-1 win. I know it's only the first qualifying stage for the Europa League, and it was a little team from Finland, but Niall McGinn looked like the all-conquering player he can be on his day. John Gallagher came in and did a tremendous job. Ryan Hedges, another solid summer signing. Sam Cosgrove doing his job up front. And I really think that with Celtic weakened by the full-time appointment of Neil Lennon, Aberdeen, when Craig Bryson gets fit, can definitely win the Premier League.
Andy, we're talking about Liverpool winning the Premier League.
Oh!
The English Premier League.
Why are we talking about that?
Well, they ran them pretty close last year. Yes, we are here to discuss whether or not Liverpool will win the Premier League next season. Now, it wasn't exactly a bad season last year. They won the Champions League, of course, and they got this incredible points total that was only just bettered by Manchester City. But Ewan, the resident What Culture Liverpool fan, how are you feeling about next season?
Kind of content. I think winning the Champions League was an absolutely amazing achievement last season. I honestly just buzzing. Still just completely happy over the summer. And the first time in a while, I've not been stressing about what's happening during the summer. We've been linked to people and just taking it easy. I think we've got an amazing squad. I think people just need to calm down and just see where it goes. The only thing that's slightly just, demoralising is that City are probably going to spend another, $500 billion on different players. They've already signed, Rodri from Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
And, I'm not, again, it's one of those things I'm quite content with seeing how it goes. I'm desperate to win the league, obviously, but getting that first trophy is a huge relief.
And a huge achievement for Liverpool last year.
Oh, absolutely. Liverpool did nothing wrong in the league last season either. They just weren't as good. They were 1 point worse or 2 points, whatever it was.
Or a few millimetres, according to...
Yeah. I'll always have those last 2 minutes during the last game of the season where I thought everything was going great.
So basically, they were a couple of millimetres worse than the best team in Premier League history. So there's not really a lot more they could have done. Obviously, be better is a catch-all thing for this. But no, Liverpool fans must have been overjoyed with everything that went down last season, apart from, not winning.
We'll all have that moment at St James's Park when Newcastle beat Man City and we all thought...
We were there, baby.
Is it going to happen?
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about the squad, not rather than people they are looking at just yet. Let's talk about the current squad. And it's kind of an obvious question, but who for you are the real key players for Liverpool?
Andrew Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yes.
Combined 20-odd assists between
23.
them?
I wrote that down.
There we go. Andy Murray does his research. Yeah, they're just amazing. The fullbacks are integral to how we play, and Robertson in particular was just incredible. He just doesn't stop. And I think, they're going to be, unless people suss out the way we're playing again, I think they'll be integral to this next season. The thing that was interesting to me and I'm curious about is that over the course of the season, we went from 4-3-3 to 4-2-3-1. I'm curious to see if Klopp goes back to playing Salah as the 9 and Firmino as the 10 again, because at times, even though it got results, we looked a bit creatively stifled. And I'm curious to see if any business will be done over the summer to maybe move to that shape, because I think the inkling is he feels more comfortable with that rather than the 4-3-3.
Now, obviously, the plaudits were given to, like you mentioned there, the fullbacks, Mane, Firmino, and of course Salah. But one other person who really deserved credit and arguably was the catalyst for the success that Liverpool had last season was, of course, the goalkeeper, Alisson.
Yeah, a huge upgrade on certainly what they had the previous season. Looked like a bit of a mental lunatic towards the beginning. A few hairy moments. Most of them, came off for him, and it was really good fun to watch. Calmed down a little bit towards the end of the season, from what I saw. A huge upgrade. I mean, it's just really simple managing, really. Weak area, upgrade it with one of the best players in the world, solved, and it made a huge difference.
People often talk about this spine of a football team, but you look at that with Liverpool and obviously with Manchester City, but we're talking about Liverpool here, and you can just, there's the names that you just automatically write on the team sheet.
Van Dijk, Fabinho.
We've got to talk about Van Dijk a little bit, haven't we? Because I think it lasted all the way to the season, but there was some point, like a month before the end of the season, where someone told me that he hadn't been beaten in any aspect, maybe like a couple of times in the air or whatever, but no one had dribbled past him, all this other stuff. That's a ridiculous statistic, particularly for someone playing in the Premier League. And let's not forget, of course, Virgil van Dijk, made in Scotland. You know, he wouldn't be half the player he is today if he didn't have all those games against Adam Rooney, Connor Salmon, other giants of the game. Scotland made him. Liverpool, I don't know, refined him.
So obviously this fantastic squad of players, as we saw showcased last season, where do you think they need to strengthen, if anywhere?
I think first on the agenda is cover at fullback. I think we definitely need. Klein went out on loan last season, and Gomez got injured around about January, which meant we were depending on Trent, and occasionally Milner was covering at right back as well. Yeah. You don't want Milner when he's going up against pacey attackers in the Premier League. You don't want 33-year-old James Milner, even though he is amazing. You don't want him necessarily.
I saw he broke some won the pre-season.
Oh, the lactate test. He's just the fittest man alive.
He's an animal.
But yeah, I think cover at fullback is definitely needed. We've been linked with that Junior Firpo guy from Real Betis for quite a hefty fee. I think it's like 40 million, but apparently he can play across the wing as well. So I think that's the other thing as well, is a versatile attack. We need cover along the front. I mean, we had Shaqiri. Klopp kind of fell out of favour with him towards the end of the season. I still believe that Shaqiri can play a part to come, but and Origi has just signed a new deal as well. But I do think that extra strength and depth is needed, which is ridiculous because we had we had loads of people off the bench last season. We've got Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain coming back this year as well. So the squad's in a very good place.
Yeah, it's surreal, isn't it, in this modern world of football where previously if you had we saw what Origi could do off the bench. We saw what Wijnaldum could do off the bench, as you mentioned there. You've got Shaqiri, you've got the Ox. You've got all these different players. That previously used to be enough, but now Man City basically have two players for every position at least. Yeah. So where do you think they need to strengthen?
I've written a few things down. Left back cover was certainly one of them, particularly with Comedy Moreno leaving and so forth. It's really a depth issue for Liverpool, isn't it? Because none of the starters need replaced necessarily, apart from potentially one. I'm of the opinion that Virgil van Dijk could play at the back with a parking cone and still, the whole defence would still be brilliant. And while Joel Matip looked much improved last season, ironed a lot of the errors and so forth out, and Dejan Lovren is Dejan Lovren. I certainly do think they could use maybe another top quality centre back to slot in there. Maybe use someone a bit more of a bruiser than Van Dijk. Maybe someone who's a bit more old fashioned. I think that'd be a nice balance. They don't really need anyone because last season was very close to being a perfect season. Almost won the league, won the Champions League. But if you're going to upgrade one position in that 11, it's probably centre-back.
I think that's a fair assessment. A lot of people have been calling for Klopp to sign someone with a bit more experience and a more consistent injury record than... Because, we all believe in the talent that Joe Gomez has, but he's been blighted by injuries the past few seasons now. And, even though he was really good those first few months of last season when he had a partnership with Van Dijk, he looked really impressive. In some games, he even outshadowed him in terms of how he was performing. But I guess it's a case of I don't think we're going to get anyone this summer. I think Klopp is very happy with the assets that he has, but I definitely see the logic in strengthening in that position.
Football fans always want that glamorous summer signing and perhaps more of a striking option. Is that a good idea, or do you think that could just sort of mess up the dynamic?
I don't think we need to... I think if any business is going to be done this summer, it's going to be just cover and complementing and making sure that we have not necessarily experience, but more people to come in and do a job if need be. It's one of those things where I know people have been asking, why aren't we signing, Nicolas Pepe from Lille or Marco Asensio from Real Madrid or stuff like that. It's like they wouldn't. Where would they play?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where we have what we have, and I think. There is a lot to be said about relying on the fact that no one gets injured, but it served us well last season.
Well, worst comes to worst, you can always get a Liverpool legend to come out of retirement. Peter Crouch,
could do us a job.
Does a job.
Give it till Crouch to the end of the season.
That would mix things up, wouldn't it? You've just taken on Salah, Mane, and Firmino, and then you see Crouchy warming up with his.
Get John Barnes back. Do a bit of rapping.
Now I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who are Liverpool's biggest challengers for the league?
Newcastle United. It's Man City, obviously, isn't it? They've just signed Rodri for a small island nation's GDP. They've got some guy called Angelino in. I've never seen him play.
Yep.
But I imagine, solid left back cover, at least for when Mendy is absolutely goosed, which is 75% of the season. It's obviously Man City. Pep's system is very intense, and I do believe it kind of takes a toll after a few seasons, but I think that you could say they peaked last season. Of course, they were the greatest team in Premier League history, but I think they can keep it going.
Now, a lot of people said last season, I want to talk to you about who potentially else could challenge Liverpool, but a lot of people said last season that Liverpool won the thing that Man City wanted to win, and Man City won the thing that Liverpool wanted to win. Do you think Man City may be slightly more distracted this coming season? Because at the end of the day, Pep's come in and won what he wanted to win, and won it phenomenally on several occasions with Manchester City, but there's that one trophy he still wants to get his hands on as Man City manager.
It's interesting. It's like, when they got the new owners, they kind of spoke of wanting to build a new football dynasty with Guardiola, and I guess they want to maintain that Premier League consistency because it's an amazing thing to have to be able to build that history now. The Champions League is definitely the big one that they want, and it's one of those things where I think their squad's so big they don't need to necessarily prioritise anything. Their biggest flaw last season was Fernandinho being injured, and they've just got Rodri who can do a job in that position. So I think they have more than enough capability to go and attack on both fronts.
And at the end of the day, not to say anything to put down Tottenham, they were effectively a VAR decision away from remaining in the Champions League. Aside from Man City, who we all know can challenge them, who else have you got your eye on as potential threats?
Crikey, it's not necessarily. I don't think anyone's going to be competing for the title as apart from Liverpool and City next season. That's maybe an arrogant thing to say. I just don't see any of the other top six are in a position to make that challenge. I think United is still a work in progress now, Manchester United. I think Chelsea, that's a really interesting equation with Frank Lampard now.
I think it might be the most interesting team this season, actually.
Yeah, because
Lampard with no budget.
I was going to say, they can't sign
they've got to rely on youngsters as well, so they're in progress. And, Arsenal, again, no Champions League
Arsenal
football.
are Arsenal.
Yeah.
And Spurs are Spurs.
And Spurs are Spurs. I think Spurs are making some interesting business this season. They've already got Ndombele from Lyon. He looks like a cracking player. And, they're still probably going to get more players to come. The thing that's curious to me
feels like they're one a couple of steps away from you two.
I still think it's going to be a two-horse race next season, but curiously, I'm interested to see how we stumble against your Leicesters and your West Hams and the kind of the movements there. I know we have every single summer you seem to talk about West Ham and all the great business that they're doing, but no, definitely Leicester in particular, I think are a really interesting equation. They've got Perez and they've got Tielemans now. I think stumbling across them might be the biggest challenges this season because, it was draws at Leicester and West Ham last season that really cost us the league, essentially. So, yeah, probably the biggest stumbling blocks are the people that aren't going to be competing for the title, which is a really weird thing to say, but I think that's probably going to be the case.
No, it's always intriguing to find out which clubs, because from just a fan's perspective, as just a fan of the Premier League generally, because my team will never play there. It's interesting to see who those teams that you perceive as the bogey teams. You obviously think of the Liverpool Evertons or the Liverpool Man Uniteds, but then you have these other ones that you are clearly far more worried about than maybe a sort of more casual fan. You mentioned there about stumbles, let's say, against West Ham and Leicester. What do you think Liverpool need to do differently next season?
There's not really a whole lot. How do you improve on what was effectively almost, if it wasn't for Man City, a perfect season? For me, the only really thing they need to do is beef out the squad a little bit. That's it. There's players like Adam Lallana and stuff that are floating around that are nice to have around, and Oxlade-Chamberlain as well, and he was coming back from injury and so forth. But they could certainly do with a few rotation upgrades. I think that's the key difference between high-level success and not quite making that high-level success. Tactically, fine. I don't think the approach needs altered at all. You can talk. I've seen a bit of talk about bringing in a number 10 and having a plan B, but the plan A was pretty damn flawless last season.
Yes.
It's such a hard question. It really is, because you want to pick it apart and so forth, and you want to look at all these things they did wrong, but there really aren't any. It was a phenomenal season. It's just disappointing that it panned out the way it did with City.
Yeah, anything else you'd like to see him do differently?
No, I think, again, I'm interested to see how the formation changes over the course. I'm going to be surprised if we keep up our ruthlessness at set pieces, because I would never have said that about a Liverpool side ages ago. Liverpool ruthless at set pieces. But we got so many goals from, free kicks and corners last season. I'm interested to see if we can make that consistent. And also, mainly is just the formation side of things. We kind of went back to the 4-3-3 after we, it was easy enough to blitz teams back when we were first playing with Klopp, but now he's kind of a little bit more measured in his approach, and that'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Any concern, and we say this every year, we say it with, when players have a phenomenal first season, but I'm going to generalise here with the entire team. Any concern that Liverpool could be figured out this season?
Again, that's what I was kind of addressing, maybe, so much of our creativity last season came from the fullbacks. I do wonder if maybe we're going to see teams maybe trying to figure out a way of making sure that we don't overload the wide areas and play that way. I think Salah ran into a bunch of problems last season in terms of players just marking him out of the game, whether he was playing through a more central position or, cutting in from the right. And again, it'll be interesting to see maybe we get more creative from midfield. We've got Keita. We still haven't seen much of him, to be honest. And Oxlade-Chamberlain coming back, maybe we do see more creativity come from the central spaces. But, as Andy said, there's no reason to change when it was so effective last season. And, until someone does figure out a way to stop that from working, then why change?
Yeah.
Back to our central question then. Will Liverpool win the Premier League next season?
I have no idea. I would like them to. I would obviously very much like them to. It's one of those things where you just got to see... You just got to hold your hands up and see where it goes. I think, I think it's probably nailed on to be a 2-horse race. I'd be very, very surprised if we kind of lagged behind City again to a major degree. I know we've got lots of players coming off the back of international duty, and that'll be interesting to see how the season starts. But yeah, I think, just see how it pans out across how the season goes, and go from there. I would like to see us do better in the domestic cups as well, to be honest.
Yes.
We've been knocked out like the first round of the FA Cup and the League Cup, twice on the bounce now, and I would like to see us take that more seriously, because a trophy is a trophy at the end of the day.
There's numerous questions coming to my mind right now, so I'm just going to throw them at you. Would you take being knocked out in the group stage of the Champions League if you won the league?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which is the one player you do not want to get injured next season?
Mane.
Everyone.
I mean, Van Dijk is a big one as well, but I say Mane because I feel as though he was almost, I think in the attacking sense, he was absolutely astounding last season. He was so consistent, he's so creative. He's a genius player and kind of almost like the dark horse of the team in the sense that everyone kind of focuses on, even Firmino, we used to talk about him being the underrated component of this side. People are starting to acknowledge his values, what he contributes to the team. Salah gets all the headlines for his goal-scoring exploits, but at the end of the day, Mane creatively is probably our best player.
And
a
great fantasy football signing. I'd say Alisson out of all that entire squad that they cannot afford to lose. Who would you go for?
Van Dijk for me. He's just, I think, you could make the argument, and quite well, that Virgil van Dijk is the most complete footballer on planet Earth. I think that you could put it this way, I think if you played Virgil van Dijk up front, he would do a more solid job than if you played Leo Messi at centre-back. In terms of, I don't think he's a better player than Leo Messi, obviously, but in terms of having such a complete set of attributes, the guy is the perfect central defender. He can do everything. He's strong in the air. He's great with the ball at his feet. He knows exactly how to time a challenge. I think that if you lose him and you're relying on Matip and Lovren, both have the positive qualities. I think that's a massive downgrade. And it would be very interesting to see how Liverpool coped with that, because Van Dijk did a tremendous job staying fit last season. But yeah, it's him for me.
You say he's not as good as Messi, but how many Scottish titles has Messi won?
Exactly.
Will Liverpool win the league next season?
Yes, I do think they will. I think that, like Ewan said, the gap between City, Liverpool and everyone else will be pretty big. I don't see Tottenham, Spurs, that is Tottenham good. Man United, or any of these other teams really closing it down. I think it'll be a 2-horse race. I think it'll be a straight-up gunslinging escapade again. And I think that if Liverpool do beef out the squad a little bit, then they will certainly be able to do that. I also think that Klopp is a smart enough manager to transcend any team starting to figure out. Maybe they'll have a little lull in the middle of the season where it looks like, okay, well, Klopp's system isn't quite working as well as it used to be, and they figured out how to neutralise Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. But they'll find a way to get around that. They will counter that, and I think they'll be fine.
Life finds a way.
I'm the eternal optimist. I mean, I was sat there watching that Leicester game going, this is going to happen. This is it. Liverpool are going to win the league off the back of this. And then obviously Vincent Kompany was just... I love it. No one dislikes Vincent Kompany. But anyway, I'm going to say, yeah, I agree. I think Liverpool are going to win the league next season. Even though, as you said, Man City could play two different squads in the Champions League, I think they're going to focus more on that. And I think a major injury to the likes of... I mean, there's many not replaceable, but interchangeable players in that Man City squad. But I think you lose Aguero for a long period of time, you're in real trouble. Let's get carried away then. If Liverpool can win the league, can they do the double?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they came within a clip of doing it last season. So, yeah, absolutely. Like, you've just got to look at that previous season. I don't know how the answer could be no, to be honest, because it was so close and it just didn't come together. I think they absolutely can. Obviously a nice European draw helps, but looking at the teams across Europe and what they've been doing this summer, I think that Liverpool would be in a very good condition to do that.
English clubs obviously dominating the Champions League last season, and people talk about fatigue. And obviously, as you mentioned there, if you were competing on the domestic front in terms of the league and FA Cup as well, that you could have an exhausted squad. Mm-hmm. But Liverpool just raised their game, as we saw on numerous occasions for Europe. Can they do the double? I realise you said maybe not to the league.
Yes.
Now we're getting really carried away.
Well, no, I don't want to say yes or no. I think it's definitely, the squad is definitely capable. I think there's no reason to say no. But I refuse to be memed and say yes, definitely we're going to win everything. Even though deep down inside I do think we'll win everything. But I think it's definitely within our hands to do that. It's probably a little bit too easy to say, early to say definitely. But I don't fear any team in Europe. That's one of the things that's been most impressive to me, was having those 2 back-to-back Champions League campaigns. I wasn't scared of any side we came up against. When it got to Bayern, I thought, well, that was a tough home game, and then we just completely blew them away. And I just felt confident immediately afterwards. I don't fear any team, which is ridiculous.
I'll just say one thing, talking about not fearing any teams in Europe. If you guys go out with the Champions League and you find yourself in the Europa League, better be hoping you don't draw the famous and envied Aberdeen.
They are famous and envied.
So there we have it. Ewan Patterson said Liverpool are definitely going to do the double next season.
The quadruple.
Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, or on Twitter. You can tweet them to us at WhatCultureFC. Watch there. Follow all 3 of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Harry Wilson.
You can follow Ewan Patterson at
Ewan Ruins Things.
You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. As I said, you can follow us all at WhatCultureFC. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe with this video and this channel. And make sure you subscribe to What Culture Football in either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily football podcasts. My thanks to Andy and to Ewan. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.
Bye.